Hunting the Shadows. Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. This is your humble host, Dennis Carroll, and this is another episode of Hunting the Shadows. It's a cold, dark night out there, and the shadows are gathering here in the grotto. It's time for some dark conversation among friends. So grab a tombstone and make yourself at home, as they used to say, the old horror movie host. Um, I've been thinking a lot about the old days back when I was a kid, watching shock theater and all that kind of stuff. It was really neat. And whenever I get very nostalgic whenever I think about that, definitely. Want to say shout out here to everybody coming in here tonight. There's Kyle Smith. Hello, Kyle. The ever beautiful Crystal Carroll Cleveland. How you doing? The wonderful Shiro, glad to have you here, dear. And my brother Midwest Night Watchers, Grandmaster G. Okay, definitely he's in here. How you doing, sir? And we've got Mr. Roger Blair on hand, and of course the wonderful girl in her gong. Definitely good to have you here, dear. And we're starting to gather a little bit. I came on a little early now. I'm getting the jump on them. Okay, I'm trying to keep them off guard here. They don't know what to expect from me, and I like it that way. That's the way I play chess. I always do the unexpected. Okay, when they figure that out, then do the expected. There you go. You got to play the game the way it's got to be played. Hello, Wizard Moon. We're gonna have some dark. Well, this is gonna be a freaking good show tonight. Okay, we've got some dark subjects to cover, and I want to say this at the beginning. Okay, if you have a weak heart, you have blood pressure problems, or if you're faint to passing out, or if you're prone to fainting spells, or whatever, and you have bad nightmares, then you might want to skip this. No, I'm just kidding. You don't want to skip this. Okay. If I had heard something like that when I was a kid, that would make me want to watch it even more so. Okay. That's just the way I am. I definitely would want to watch that. All right. Hello, John. Good to have you here. And um, to me, that's worth the journey. Okay, that's worth the trip going there. Definitely, if it's going to be that bad. But we are definitely, all kidding aside, we're going to have some very dark subjects tonight because I'm going to be talking about, amongst other things. Okay, I'm going to be talking about Phase Two Phantasms, and I'm going to explain exactly what that is. Doppelgangers. Oh yeah, doppelgangers. Gonna be talking also, since someone mentioned it today, did a fantastic show with my good friend Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress. If you missed it, go back and catch it. Because we had a great one about sheep squatch. Okay, sheep squash. And it was great. So if you missed it, go back and catch it. But there's somebody mentioned that during the thing. It might have been John about the platt eye, and um, also, along with that, we'll definitely go the boo hag. So I'm going to be covering that tonight. I haven't talked about that in quite a while. I'm going to get my field notes out here. And let me see if I got that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to also talk about old green eyes at Chickamauga and old red eye. That's a great story there. Wait till you hear that one. So we've got, and then I'm going to talk about Francois the Trapper, which ties into the doppelganger thing. So we got some ground to cover tonight, definitely. So you're going to really enjoy this episode because we're going to go way off the rails here. The strange train is going way off the rails tonight, folks. Okay. Yeah, that was you, John. Okay. And I haven't talked about Platt Eye in a long time. And I haven't also mentioned a lot of the Gullah. I've spent some time around with the Gullah. Okay. I got a lot of interesting legends, but these are two of my favorite. Would be Platt Eye, and I will explain what that is in a few minutes to those that don't know. But also the Boo Hag. That's my all-time favorite because it is a very, very strange entity. I won't call it a cryptid because it really doesn't fall in the category of cryptids in that respect. In some ways, but in some ways it might do it. But anyway, hey Millie, good to have you here. And it is very interesting. The Gullah have a lot of interest. You know me, I love folklore, culture, and all that stuff. So I soak that up, just like I have with the Native American legends, Japanese and Chinese legends, the Indian legends of India, the legends of the Eskimo, the Polynesians. Oh yeah, the Polynesians are great with the shark god and the fire demons. Oh, that's some great stuff in the folklore of this world. Not just the European folklore with its vampires and werewolves and Borvalicas and all that good stuff. The Nosferatu and so on and so on. I love folklore, but I like the. It's not just the. I kind of specialize in folklore. I like the scary stuff. Okay, that's my big deal, man. But talking about the Gullah, though, I have, they are also have a type of voodoo, which I experienced one night. You might remember me telling you the story. I really took my life in my own hands that night. I couldn't have been, if I had been caught, I would not be here tonight, probably. Okay. Hey, little Kilroy, good to have you here. Juno, brother, my brother Juno. I would not be here, okay? If so, I have put my life in danger many times to learn the things that I've learned and experienced over the years. But to me, it was worth the long haul, okay? To find out the things I needed to know. But there are different types of voodoo in the world. The voodoo that the Gullah have is different than what you may find in Florida or Haiti or Jamaica or New Orleans or whatever, wherever there are big pockets of voodooism. They all fall under the same umbrella, but they're different kind of segments. And I've almost said it's being like, Baptist, Episcopalians, Lutherans, and Methodists, and all that. They kind of like that under the Protestant umbrella. That's the way voodoo is in certain aspects. But voodoo is very regional in that respect, very regional and very cultural. And it's fascinating stuff. I've always liked the anthropological slant on these things. I love anthropology, by the way. Hey, Jojo, good to have you here. And anyway, That's the gala, and I'll be talking about them. I'm going into that a little bit, but first of all, first on tab tonight, and I got to make some announcements, of course. Now this time, almost this time next week, next Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Now, not 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but at 8 o'clock p.m. We're going to do the first seminar coming up, all about angels. That's next Wednesday night now, okay? So spread the word. I will be doing a little advertising on this, but yeah, I need your help too, and I want you to spread the word for me. I'm on to as many people as say, hey, you need to listen to this about angels, okay? Because it is a fascinating thing. And here is the most, I'm going to tell you this to you, folks, okay? Here's the most interesting, important, intriguing, and very fascinating aspect of all this. Angels are real, okay? They're not made up. They are the real deal, okay? And we're going to really get deep into that, and so you don't want to miss that. So mark it on your calendars. That's true, John. From Odea to Santeria, it goes on and on. There's different voodoo in every region, including the original voodoo from Africa, where it all began. But a lot was in, and a lot of these regions brought in Catholicism into the voodoo religion too, as well. So it's very strange hodgepodge of a lot of things, definitely. So anyway, to make a long story short, I'm not going to get into the voodoo aspect of it tonight, but we're going to talk about some of the legends that are associated with some of it. But don't forget now, mark your calendars, and that'll be the first seminar, and the next seminar after that is going to be very good too, and that's going to be, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the it's the first couple of weeks in April. Anyway, I think it's April 15th. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say that for sure, but I think it is. That we're going to be doing how to hunt the shadows. That's going to be one seminar. That's where I'm going to teach you how to investigate and research the correct way to go about this, no matter what it may be, whether it's spiritual research, cryptid, UFO, whatever the situation. I'm going to be teaching that straight out of my book, Beyond the Shadows, okay? So you don't want to miss that seminar, and that's going to be a 2-hour seminar. And then our third seminar, 2-hour seminar, will be how to fight the shadows. And that'll be a little bit out of the book of Beyond the Shadows, but some other things. It's going to get into some demonology and some other things too. So you don't want to miss that, and that's going to be fascinating too. So that'll be all about angels, how to hunt the shadows, and how to fight the shadows. Okay, and so those are the 3 seminars we've got on tab coming up. Hello, Philip. Good to have you here. The bugbear, yeah, that's an interesting one too, Philip, definitely. Hello, Ann. Good to have you here, dear. Anyway, that's all coming up. And this Friday, got one more announcement before we get into this stuff here. This Friday is going to be delayed, okay? And I don't want you to remember this, because usually we start at 8 o'clock on Friday, but I've got an interview that I'm going to be doing with a radio. I've got a radio interview that I've got to do. And so as soon as I get done with that, I'm going to come on with Paranormal Point of View. And it may be around 9:30 or 10, okay? So I want to get everybody a heads up on that, okay? So it's going to be delayed slightly, but it will nevertheless, God willing, and the creeks don't rise, as they say, we'll get it done, okay? And you don't want to miss this Paranormal Point of View, because we're going to be introducing the very first episode of Paranormal Eyewitness Point of View, and I'll be talking about some of my strangest cases, okay? And you don't want to miss that, so be ready for it Friday night, but it's going to just be a little bit of a delay, okay? Hey, Roger, good to have you here. And I want to put that out there, okay? So let's think about that now. If any time during tonight's show you have any questions, observations, please feel free to put them forward. We'll try to watch for them as much as possible. But on tab for tonight, like I say, I'm going to be covering Phase 2 Phantasms. What the heck is that? Okay. And I'm going to talk about that a few minutes and explain what it is before we get into Phase 2 Phantasms. And doppelgangers because they're kind of connected. Okay. But now the reason why, and I'm the one that named these phase two phantasms. A phantasm is a specter, a spirit, a ghost, or whatever, type of a thing you want to call it. But a phase two simply means it is very malevolent, very evil, very bad guy to deal with here, okay? And that's why it's called a phase two. A phase one would be just a ghost that or a spirit that appears, like you might see somebody walking down the street with an umbrella, whatever the situation is. They won't be threatening. They won't be any kind of a harm to you. You just would see them and encounter them. That would be really termed a phase one phantasm. Okay, and now the word phantasm means spirit or specter of some sort. But now your phase two phantasm is a whole different ball game. Okay, it's a different animal altogether here. Definitely, and we want to stress that point because it is very malevolent. The phase one could be benevolent. It might be helpful sometimes. I'm not going to say they're angels. That's a different thing. Okay, that's a different category. But they might be helpful in some ways to you. They might be maybe the appearance of a relative or somebody that you knew, or it just might be like we've talked about residual haunting before. You may be just seeing a piece of the past playing out before your eyes again. That's what you got to think about with that. Okay, but that's a phase one. A phase two is a whole different thing altogether. Now let me explain what the phase two encompasses. They can be very malevolent revenants. Now, revenant is a returning spirit, usually the spirit of someone who's come back for some type of revenge against someone. They are definitely out for no good, in other words, and they might even be part of some type of a curse that somebody would put on some type of witchcraft curse or whatever, satanic curse or whatever they're doing, this dark witchcraft or whatever. It can be part of that as well, okay, but I'm not going to get into that tonight. That's another category in itself, my completely different thing. But a phantasm 2, phase 2 phantasm is a very bad actor in the way of specters. Okay. Now, by this, I mean they can take on many different shapes and forms. They can also be connected to the Fae, the fairies. I like to call them the Fae. That's their original title, the Fae. There are some Fae that would definitely be called phase two phantasms. Okay, because and I mentioned this on Jessica's show today about an incident I had in the forest with what might possibly have been a run in with sheep squatch or something like that. Because what it was doing, it was sounding all around me, making a noise like a sheep or goat, but it still didn't sound right. It didn't sound like, and I've heard sheep and goats. I've heard everything that makes a noise in the woods. Okay, I mean I've heard mountain lions, I've heard bears, I've heard wild boar, I've heard them all. This was something I never had heard before like this, okay? And I was out in the middle of nowhere, okay? It was daytime, it wasn't night. I was out in the middle of nowhere, and this thing sounded, and I got to thinking, this is somebody's pet goat, They got lost or wandered off or something, but I was miles away from farmland, okay? So it was very strange, very odd. And then the other thing that occurred to me, what if this is a goat somebody tied up for some kind of a satanic or devil cult worship thing going on or what? I was struck by the thing, but here's the weird part of it all, okay? It would sound around me. First, for 1 minute, it'd be way over here. And the next time you hear it, it would be in a different direction. And then again, it would do the same thing again. It would be in another direction. And it was all the time it was doing this. And it was only about maybe 30 minutes that this happened. It was leading me or trying to lead me deeper into the woods. Now, let me tell you something, folks. When something comes up trying to lead you off the trail, something trying to lead you somewhere, do not follow that, okay? Do not have anything to do with it. Okay, because they're trying to trick you and luring you deeper into something you may not want to go into. Okay, so be very careful about that. And we're going to be talking some more about these types of the encounters. But this is part of the doppelganger thing as well. Okay. But anyway, if something like that, and a lot of the Fae do that. That's some of the Fae. There is one Fae, I can't think of her name. I know it as well as my own, but I can't think of it right now. But anyway, she appears to men as a beautiful young woman, and she will lead men off into the forest and kill them. She's very, very malevolent in that respect. She's a phase two phantasm, definitely. And she is doing that kind of stuff. And matter of fact, I'm thinking about while I'm telling this story, there is a professor that I know who actually experienced this. He had one of these things appear to him and try to lead him into the forest, which he was smart enough not to do, okay? Or he wouldn't have been around to tell the rest of the story. That when he didn't follow her, she got very angry and just disappeared right in front of him. uh, she didn't get to do what she wanted to do. Okay, that's the way these spirits, these malevolent spirits work. They're evil spirits. Okay, but you cannot sometimes classify these things as demons because they can be other things as well. They can be elementals also, and like this faith that I'm talking about, she is definitely tied into elemental type spiritual things. Okay, definitely. But there are other things out there like that too. So be very careful because these things set snares and traps for you if you're not careful. Okay, a little beyond the box. Good to have you here. And the whole thing is that you've got to be very leery and very careful when you deal with spirits because a lot of them are trickster spirits. We've talked about them before, and that's what we mentioned on Jessica's show today. We mentioned a little bit about that maybe the sheep squash might be some type of a shapeshifter, you know. But there you go. That's a thing that a lot of these things can do. That's an ability they have to shapeshift, especially trickster type spirits. So you got to really watch that. Okay, be very leery, be very careful, because these things are not trying to lure you off for good reasons. Okay, very bad reasons, and do not follow them. And this is the same thing, and I kind of categorize the black-eyed children as sort of a phase two phantasm in a way, because they are trying to get invited into your house, and these things have to be invited into your life, your house, your car, your boat, or whatever it is, wherever you're at. When you invite them in, or you accept them, or you make that connection or communication with them, that is an open invitation. So be very careful what you're doing. You do not want to invite these things into your proximity, because once you do that, it sort of gives them a little more power over you. And some of these things can be downright hypnotic. They can put you in something like a trance. That's why we've often said, do not look them in the eyes. Do not do that, because that's a bond, a spiritual bond you do not want to form. Do not look them in the eyes. Okay, be very careful about that. Evidence the black-eyed kids are solid. Now that you mention it, that's true. You know, I have to wonder about that with the black-eyed kids. Are they? And they can disappear so easily. They can be there one minute and gone the next. And here's another interesting thing about some of these spirits, and I mentioned this to you, John, and the rest of you as well. These things do not move sometimes in our time and space. Now, let me explain that to you for a minute. And I've had a lot of eyewitness accounts of these so-called pale crawlers, and I believe, and I'm going to do a movie review Friday night on something very similar to that. So you want to listen to the movie review. But pale crawlers are fascinating. I think they come from out of underground, from tunnel systems, or wherever it is they're at. But anyway, the thing about them, and they move very much like these phase two phantasms I'm talking about. You can see them one minute, like maybe 30 yards away behind a tree. The next time you look, they're closer, and you didn't see them move. You know what I'm saying? It's almost as if they're transcending time and space in an effort to move. And the next time you look again, they'll be even closer and closer and closer. I've got something I want to show you. I've got a film I want to show you here that illustrates this point for you, okay? So hold on just a minute if I can get it to play. I want you to watch this. Now I'm gonna warn you. This comes from a movie, but it is very well illustrates what I'm talking about here. Uh, this is freaky. Okay, if I can get it to play. Uh, hold on just a second. All right. Okay, gotta find my way around here. Okay, if you can watch this, I hope this will play. Check it out and watch what happens. How this thing moves, and the next thing you know, it's right in front of you. Watch this. This is freaky. I warn you, this is very frightening in a way. Okay, this is a great scene. I love this scene. Okay, check it out.
Mom? Hey, sweetie. You're home early. I thought you weren't supposed to be back till next week. Oh? Is everything okay? Yes. Everything is fine. Hey, sweetie. How's it going? Sorry I missed your call. You look like you've seen a ghost, girl. What's going on? Sweetie? Baby, what's going on, sweetie? What's going on with you?
Oh my god. Best scary movie.
Now that is freaky. Okay, very freaky. And that what you're looking at there is definitely a phase two phantasm doppelganger type thing. Okay. And that illustrates my point. Yeah, very freaky. Look at that evil looking smile. But what it is, that's her. She thinks that's her friend. I've had cases like this. Okay, that's why I thought that illustrated this very well. Although that's a movie, this has happened to people in real life. And says she looks across the room, she sees her friend standing there, and she says, "Are you all right? What are you doing here?" And she doesn't answer. She just says, she kind of mimics her. She says, "All right." And then she says, "Are you okay?" and all that. And she says, "Okay." And then keep looking. She keeps getting slightly closer. Every time she looks up, she's zooming in a little bit closer. And finally, the friend calls her on the phone. The friend she's looking at calls her on the phone and says, "Hey, how you doing?" It's not her friend. Okay, what is this thing? And then the next time she looks up, says right there at her, and it's a little bit too late for her in that book. Okay, that's what happens in certain cases like this when you have phase two phantasms. Okay, so there you go. That is a very illustrated point. We're going to talk about that a little bit more when I get into the doppelganger aspect of this. But let me tell you now the story a little bit about. Yeah, you better trust your intuition. You better know what you're dealing with, and that's why there is that warning in the Bible about testing the spirits. You better know, you better understand and feel, not just know. You better feel and go with your feeling on what some of this stuff is. That's the first thing. The first thing when I looked up and I saw them standing in my living room like that, I just said, wait, where did you come in? You just opened the door and come into my house. You didn't knock on the. There you are, all of a sudden out of nowhere. And you're not acting right. You're not doing right. She was just standing there with her head down. She wasn't even acting like a human being in certain aspects. She wasn't acting very human, was she? And that should have been the first telltale sign right there. You're not dealing with a human. When they don't act human, you're not dealing with something that's probably human. Although there are a lot of things in this world, my friends, that can look human, and they're far, far from being humans. Okay? Don't ever forget that, because that's very true. And that even holds with angels, demons, whatever the situation. And I've had a lot of demonic cases where these demons have looked like children. I had one that even appeared to a woman to look like Jesus Christ. I know that sounds freaky, but that's very true. She said this woman talked to me one time about this. She said that I have a dream every now and then. And she said, I have this dream where I'm in my garden and Jesus is in my garden. And he looks like Jesus and he's calling me. He's calling me. But she said, I feel an evil from this, but it looks like Jesus, but it's evil. And I said, well, lady, you got to go with what you feel. That's not Jesus in your dream, okay? That Jesus would not do that to you in your dream, okay? You better go with what you're feeling. I said, understand that what's going on here has got some kind of an evil connection to it, okay? Hello, Aussie Sue, good to have you here, dear. And you got to go with it, okay? And and like he says, like everybody says, your intuition, your feeling, you've got that built into you. Don't ever weaken it. Don't ever dampen it. Don't ever push it down. It's there for a reason. It's to help you survive and understand the things that are going on around you, whether they be physical or spiritual. Okay, don't ever forget that. But now, uh, let's see. Yeah. Anyway, I want to talk about the strange case of Francois the Trapper. Okay, now listen to this. Francois this I think happened in Michigan many years ago. I think it was in the late 1700s, and there was a very well known trapper who was real good friends with a lot of men up there, and his name was Francois. I forget his last name. His name was Francois, and Francois was a great trapper. And he went off one day, and he was with a party of men. Usually they just like today. You wouldn't really want to go out by yourself. Sometimes you'd have to set traps by yourself, but most of the time you went with a party of people. It was just safer that way. And Francois had gone out to set his traps, and he didn't come back. And they went out looking for him. For 2 or 3 days, they looked for Francois, could not found his traps, found his footprints, and he just disappeared. They couldn't find him anywhere. Okay. About the third day, they were getting ready to break camp, and they heard Francois calling to them from out of the woods. And Francois was saying, like, help me, I'm lost. Can you come to my voice? Come here and help me. He was saying this in French, I think, by the way. He was a French trapper. And they said that some of the men started to go there. No one of them said, that's not Francois. Okay, do not go there. That's not Francois. And they said, well, he's probably hurt, and we got to go help him. He said, look, trust me, it's not Francois. He said, I didn't want to tell you till we got gone, but I found Francois's body 2 days ago, and I buried him myself. That's not Francois. That illustrates a point, okay? Don't take everything for what it appears to be. Something was out there trying to lead them into the woods to probably kill them like it killed Francois. Okay, that's a very well-known story. And hey, Mike Jones, good to have you here. And so be very careful what you're dealing with, okay? Because it could be a phase 2 phantasm type thing. It could be out to get you for some reason, or to do something very bad to you. Now I'm going to turn now to doppelgangers, which I find to be one of the most fascinating of all. The doppelganger can be two things. It can be a phase 2, like you just saw in that clip. It can be a phase 2 phantasm, or it can be a phantasm of you. You can be your own doppelganger. In other words, you can appear somewhere else and even be alive. Now, we're not talking about dead people like Francois was. We're talking about alive people here. You can be sighted in different locations. Have you ever had anybody come to you and say, I saw you somewhere the other day? And you say, oh, it wasn't me. I was home or something. It wasn't me. I've had people tell me that. Say, hey, I saw you somewhere. If this happens a lot, then you better start questioning something here. What's going on? Okay. Because you are evidently putting forth a thought form of yourself. That's what basically a lot of people think a true doppelganger is. a thought form of yourself. Now, I had a case where, and I'm going to explain this to you right quick. Some of you may have heard this before, but that's okay. I'll repeat it again for you. Anyway, I had a case where this mother came to me, and she said, the weirdest thing, this girl, happened to me the other day. It happened to me and my daughter. She said, I was home. I got home early from work. And said, I was home. I was sitting on the couch watching TV or something. And I hear my daughter come in. She said, and she was just coming mad. She came in, slammed the front door, and she said, I saw her just a little bit going up the stairs. She just stomped all the way up the stairs and slung the door open in the room. Sounded like she just tore that room up. She just started throwing stuff and screaming and hollering and knocking things over. She said, I didn't know what in the world was going on. She said, I got up and I went up there. She said, I opened the door to my daughter's room. My daughter wasn't there. Nothing was out of place. So about that minute, I heard the front door open. My daughter come in. And I turned to my daughter and I said, what in the world are you doing? You coming in the house like a stormtrooper or something. You start tearing things up and throwing, screaming and hollering. What'd you do that for? And she said, Mama, I didn't do that. I just got home. That wasn't me. Well, she said, somebody come in here that looked like you and done this. And here's the clincher to this, folks. I talked to the daughter and I said, that day, were you upset over something? She said, yes. She said, I got some kind of assignment in school. And I was really upset about it. And I was really mad about it. Well, the mad part of you, I thought, came home and tried to trash your room. Okay. That's the weird thing about it. It's almost as a thought form of herself preceded herself psychically forward into the day. That's very interesting. And that, my friends, is what a true doppelganger can be like. Okay. I hear a ton of, John says, I hear a ton of living doppelganger accounts of people arriving home shortly before they actually arrive home. Seems to be about people thinking ahead to their arrival. Absolutely, it's on their mind very, very strongly. And you know, like that old saying, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. Be careful what you think, because sometimes thinking can make it so. It has happened. There are a lot of documented cases. It's not just with doppelgangers. But there is one very interesting story about a well-known nun. She was a Spanish nun in Spain, and she was friends with some of the Franciscan nuns who were missionaries in South America. I think in Colombia or Bolivia, somewhere like that. And that she was so concerned with what was going on, and I think they were having native problems or whatever the situation was. And she was praying for them and all that. And she got a letter. This was back years ago before you had telephones and stuff. She got a letter several weeks later, and it was from the guys in Bolivia, and they said, "We really appreciate you, Sister Patrice, for coming to see us the other day, and comforting us and praying with us." And she wrote back, I'm in Spain. I never left Spain. I've never been to your missionary. Well, maybe she did. Through prayer and thought and emotion, she may have actually crossed an ocean to do that. And that was her in that way. So then they said, well, it had to be you. It was just like you, because they knew her. You know, she was, said, you acted like you, talked like you, it looked like you, it prayed like you did. And said, it was you. And she said, no, it was not me. The priest here will swear to it. I never left Spain. So there you go. That was a very interesting, well-documented case. Was that some type of a religious ecstasy that she had, or was she meant to be put there by God, or a force that needed her to be there at that certain point in time and situation? We'll never really know. But it is very, very interesting case. And there have been other cases like that of people who were dying in the moments of death, that their doppelgangers will appear to other people in their family and all that. I have many cases where people wake up at night and see their mother or their father smiling to them, and they say, well, what's my mom and daddy doing here, you know? And they wake up, they go back to sleep, and they wake up next morning and find out they've died, and they died at that exact time that these people appeared to them. That, my friend, is sort of a Crassus a crisis apparition type of a doppelganger. That would be a phase one type doppelganger or a phantasm. Okay. There's stories of saints doing that stuff, Millie says. Absolutely. Projecting themselves to wherever they need to go spiritually. So it may not actually be their body that's teleporting there, but it may be their spirit, the essence of their being is going there. Over miles of ocean and land that they could never do in real life. I don't know about you, but if you've ever walked a mile, and if you got to face 4 or 5 or 800 or 1,000 miles, you just don't do that in a hurry. Unless you're in an airplane or a car or something or a boat, and they didn't have those kind of things back then. They didn't have airplanes and stuff. So that makes me wonder about that, definitely. Uh, I hope all my friends are doing well tonight, Kyle says. Well, thank you, sir. I hope you're doing well, too. And everything's going good for you, sir. Uh, anyway, that is what happens a lot in these situations with doppelgangers. Uh, but there can also be very malevolent type doppelgangers that can actually appear to look like in that clip I showed. They can look like somebody you trust, somebody you know. Be very leery of that because they may not be who you think they are, okay? And they may not be there for all the good reasons, definitely. John Fortman says, I recall a Victorian story of a woman on a train traveling to see her ailing sister and shockingly seeing her doppelganger on the train, but with a fresh scratch on her face. Well, now, John, let me get back to the doppelganger thing. There is another doppelganger we need to talk about. Are there, and there's a theory and conjecture on this, are we sometimes our doppelgangers really us meeting ourselves in different time streams or different time and space scenarios? You remember I talked about the string theory and how all these supposed universes can sometimes, once in a while, cross or intersect. Could we perhaps be meeting ourselves, kind of like that old Doctor Who? I don't know if you're familiar too much with Doctor Who, but there was one very favorite scene of mine where Doctor Who, he goes somewhere. He's a time traveler, and he's going and he's walking into a building, and coming out the door, he sees himself, and he looks at himself and winks his eye and walks on off. So he meets himself in time, and he turns to the woman with him and says, I hate it when that happens. You can't cross yourself sometimes. Maybe some of these doppelgangers are us in different time streams and different time dimensions. It's an interesting theory. It would explain a lot of doppelganger activity, definitely, especially if somebody says they've actually seen you somewhere. And we can experience this effect sometimes. Have you ever walked up to somebody? You were sure it was somebody you knew, and you tap on back when they turn around, it's not somebody that you really know at all. We've all had that happen, I think, once or twice in our lifetimes. We actually think it's somebody. I think this can be a thing of the mind, that we've got that person on our mind. They have some characteristics of that person that we think it was so sure it's them, and then when we tap on back, find out it's not, So, that can be sort of a weird, I call it the doppelganger echo effect. It's not really the person you think it is, but you think you're led to believe it is. So that's a very odd part of it, too. Doppelganger stuff is fascinating. It goes into a lot of different areas, and it would make a really great book. Somebody ever want to write one about it one day. I'm thinking about that myself. It would make a great book on doppelgangers. What are they? What are they leading up to? And what are they here for? But what if there was a malevolent you, just like that Twilight episode, Mirror Image? What if there was a malevolent you from another dimension trying to take over your spot in this dimension? Think about that. And I've had a lot of people tell me this. They're talking about the size of clothes they wear. Whenever I go to get that size, somebody else has already bought them all out. It's almost as if your doppelganger showed up and bought the clothes you were going to buy. You have to wonder about that sometimes. What's going on with that? Is it somebody, some mean, evil you from another dimension coming and stealing stuff from yourself because they're getting ready to replace you here in this dimension? You'd have to wonder about that. That's freaky to think about. Definitely. Also seen John pass by quickly when he wasn't there. The floor creaked first and dogs and all that. Damn, you can be thinking sometimes, John's wife. You can be thinking sometimes so much about someone that it projects them. And actually, if they're thinking about something, maybe together the thinking kind of meets. You're projecting, thinking about them, and they're projecting about thinking about doing something, and so it kind of brings it more to life for you. I'm not going to get into thought form stuff, tuplas as they call them, tonight, but that is a fascinating thing. And there was an experiment done on this years ago where they actually created a being by thinking about it and almost brought it to life. I think it scared them so bad they stopped. But they almost brought this thing to life in many ways. And there are a lot of indications that thought forms could truly exist. Be very careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Demos Mars, hello. Have you heard about faceless doppelgangers? Yep, heard about them too. And that's another thing that a lot of people conjecture that they may be from some other weird dimension trying to take over you in this dimension, trying to replace you. That's an interesting thing. And of course, there can be mechanical doppelgangers. Okay, they can be robotic androids that are set out to replace you by looking like you. They can be faceless until they assimilate the characteristics of your face or whatever. That's a weird science fiction type of thing. But that's a possibility too that you could be doing. Or some of these clones made clones can be doppelgangers as well. When you get into that and you think about it, that's a fascinating aspect of it as well. What if something could be cloned to be your doppelganger? I think there was a movie about that not long ago. A black guy was in the movie. I can't think of it, and I can't think of the name of it. And it was kind of a comedy, but yes, they were making these doppelgangers to replace him. They were going to replace him with these things, and that's never good. Okay, folks, if they're going to replace you, the original, with something else, there's somebody up to something no good when they do that. Okay. There's a few reports out there, people who claim it had a shift into a neighboring timeline and all. It's not quite the original world. Who knows what happened to them on the other end? Well, there have been also many reports of people, like you say, going into these different timelines, and it will look the same, but they won't be quite the same. There'll be something off about it. And there was one report that, like, this is the left-handed person that went into this time stream, and when he went there, he was right-handed. It was almost as if everything was a mirror reverse, and that's what threw him off. Instead of driving on the right side of the road, everybody was driving on the left side of the road, and all this other stuff. He wasn't in England either, by the way. Everything was kind of reversed, a mirror image, kind of like the Twilight Zone thing, the mirror image. You have to wonder what's going on with that. And if you would run into certain situations like that, you might even go to a timeline where Hitler won the war, or you might go into a timeline where there's like a end of the world scenario going on. You might go into another timeline that the aliens have landed and taken over. You never know what you would encounter in different timelines, because they could be a little bit off, or they could be drastically different from each other. That's an interesting part. I'm also here to theory that wherever you die in one timeline, your consciousness switches to the next all of a sudden time. I've heard that too. But I always go by the general rule of Doctor Who. Doctor Who always said this: no matter where you go, there you are. Okay, don't ever forget that. Okay. Wherever you go, there you are. But anyway, that's the thing on doppelgangers. Now I'm going to move to my next thing. I'm going to talk about old green eyes a little bit. Okay, that's a fascinating thing too. And I'm not going to get too deep into that. Now, my friend Jessica Jones has investigated old green eyes too. Now, he is a thing that supposedly haunts the battlefield of Chickamauga, which is on the North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia border, right around in there. And if you've heard of Chickamauga, I'm sure a very famous battle took place. I think almost 40 men died. 40,000 men died there. in that battle. It's sort of the Gettysburg of the South, as they've called it. Well, Chickamauga was a horrendous battlefield, and a lot of the, especially the Yankee soldiers who lay dead, lay on the battlefield for many days before some of them were buried. But there immediately began a story about a creature that was sighted amongst the bodies and the battlefield itself, and it has gone on down through time for many, many years now. That this creature has green eyes. That's what you see glowing in the dark, the green eyes. And some people classify it as a cryptid. I think it sounds very demonic to me in that respect, and I'll tell you why. Demons are drawn, of course, to battlefields and places of great trauma, death, and sorrow, pain and suffering. They love places like that. It would not be that far fetched to think it would not be haunted by at least more than one demon for that matter. And demons' eyes can appear not just red, but they can be green and yellow too. Whatever they feel like doing. Most of the time they are red, but sometimes they can be different colors. And I think a lot of these colors can be attributed to the elemental part of whatever they are connected with or whatever the situation. But that was old Green Eyes, and they tell the story of one guy that actually ran into Green Eyes. It actually ran him off the road in the battlefield. He was driving through the battlefield in a truck, and he ran him off the road. And when he come to in the wreck, so Green Eyes was sitting up on top of his hood, and this is what it's described to look like. It's described as having sort of the body of a man, but he has long hair. And we're talking about long hair all the way down his face and everything, except for the green glowing eyes that he looks at you with. And he said that he had never felt such evil, and there was a stench of rotting dead flesh about it. Scared the fool out of this guy, and he took off. He got out of the wreck and took off, and said that it disappeared while he was running. And I think it was the last he saw it, but it scared him, and not only ran him off the road, but he came after him after in the wreck as well. So that was a very interesting thing about that. Um, uh, let's see what we got here. That's old Green Eyes. We'll talk about some more about him later on. But Jessica actually went to Chickamauga and had an interesting investigation on that. Mike Jones, death without Christ, the physical body dying and trapped in the spirit and wide awake. John Fortman, Millie, who's a doppelganger, did you see? Millie, my husband, when we were still dating. See, you can think, Millie, you probably had him on your mind very strongly. You know, that has a lot to do with it. You got to look at the tie between the doppelganger and the poltergeist. Okay, think about the poltergeist for a moment. There is a distinct connection between pubescent children, especially when young girls, and poltergeist. It's almost as if there's a psychic energy thing going on. I call it psychic energy transference going on with these that brings about the precipitation of the poltergeist. Could this also be the thing that triggers some doppelganger things as well? That you're thinking the thought is there, the emotion. Emotions are a very strong factor in all this. You got to remember that, and coupled with the mind power, and maybe even the thoughts of love or being enamored with someone, or strong feelings about someone, can bring forth these things. Definitely. John Fulton said, "Middle John and I met for the first time at a comic book convention. When I left, I heard a woman's voice from the back seat say loud, 'He will propose by the end of the summer.'" He did. Well, maybe that was your guardian angel warning you. Okay, there you go. But anyway, I've heard of that, Dennis, about girls and puberty. Something about the heightened pushing strength. Yeah, definitely, it's there. There is that connection. Now, there are other types of poltergeist that can be demonic, but there is a connection with a lot of this adolescent stuff going on, especially when you're young. Your emotions are very high strung, and there's a lot of nervous going on, peer pressure, and a lot of stuff. Your emotions are going to definitely be high. And remember about what I've always said, about the balance of ourselves, the way that the demonic attacks you physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. These are four factors that make up your actual soul. That's what you are. Your being, your existence, and the emotions are one of them. Okay, they're a very strong and powerful thing. So we got to remember that about emotions, definitely. They feed off negative emotions primarily, expound on them when the positive goes. They seem to have a monopoly on them too, Alan says. Definitely. The demonic likes to create negativity so it can feed off of negativity because it is negativity. Okay? That sounds weird. And I've tried to explain this to a lot of people. It's like a spiritual perpetual motion machine. It keeps going on and on like a snowball rolling downhill. But unfortunately, snowball gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes down the hill. And that's the way this negativity trap goes, okay? Because the negativity creates negativity, feeds off of negativity, the negativity grows stronger. And that's where things really bad begin to happen. That's what happens with the demonic. Definitely. Oh, yeah, I've seen it happen 1,000 times. Works that way. That's just the very nature of the beast that you're dealing with, okay? Um, but anyway, that's a little bit more about old green eyes, okay? Now, I want to get to the next one. This is a very interesting thing. Oh, Plat Eye. Okay, I'm going to talk about Plat Eye and Boo Hag a little bit here, okay? Let's see if I got some pictures for you. That's sort of a rendition of a Boo Hag there. And that is the Boo Hag. Kind of a little look on her. And then you have Plat Eye. That's kind of described as sometimes described as a dog-looking thing with one eye in the center of the head. And if you see his entrails are hanging down, dragging along the ground, that's the way it's all sometimes described. But the interesting thing about Plat Eye is that he is a supreme shapeshifter. Okay, he shapeshifts, and a lot of these other things do that too. And I said that's one of the attributes you always, when you see something shapeshifting, usually it's not good. Okay, and that's what supposedly Plat Eye can appear as a cat and can appear as a dog or the wild hog. He can appear whatever he wants. He's very much like, in some ways, a trickster spirit. Plat Eye is a very interesting Gullah legend, and they are very afraid of Plat Eye. But now, if you go to the psychological part of this, it is sort of their fear and anxiety that is supposed to be connected to slavery, and the lives that they lived in slavery and poverty and all that. Now, the Gullah community is very much attached to the sea, to the coast, the coastal areas, the sea life and all that. So their beliefs and all that are sort of connected with the sea, with the marsh life and things like that. And old Plat Eye kind of blends into that a lot because he is sort of but he's more like a portent of evil to them. He's just a thing, a bad thing. Don't go out tonight, or you might run into old Plat Eye. We'll get you, kind of a thing. He was the bugbear, the boogeyman of the Gullah in that respect. There is one way that you can keep him supposedly away from you, and that is to carry a small bag or sack of gunpowder and sulfur. He's supposed to be very bad against him on that. So if you wanted to be protected from Plat Eye, you would definitely carry a little bit of sulfur and gunpowder. My gunpowder be carried in a bullet, by the way. But anyway, I don't know if that would help any. But that's the one sort of like crosses against vampires, is against Plat Eye, okay? I always like to give people a defense mode on some of this stuff, just in case they run into it, right? The Hank Blue is a very interesting thing, John. That's a very prevalent thing in the South. The color blue signifies heaven, okay, or good things, the good things of the universe. Blue is that symbol, is the color of that. Just like white is the color of pure spiritual purity The blue signifies heaven or the help of the angels or whatever, and that's why the haint blue. The haints, the evil spirits, are supposed to shy away from the color blue. There's another color they don't like too much either, and that's the color red, especially against witchcraft. Supposedly witchcraft and all that does not like the color red. The color of witchcraft, evil witchcraft and all that is supposedly black, of course. Colors are a big symbolic thing, okay? Just like you have different color candles you're supposed to burn for different things. You have different color cloth that you wear. Well, it's a symbol of whatever it is, the spiritual aspects and stuff of life and the universe around us. That's why it ties into that very much. Uh, wake up, I'm open the fridge. Okay. I think red against fairies too. Yeah, yeah. Anything bad, red is supposed to be good now. But here's the interesting thing: all the gnomes are often described wearing little red caps. So maybe they're good guys. I've often thought about that, wondered about that. Maybe they're trying to ward off the bad guys too. They're wearing their little red jackets and hats, okay, and they're not even baking cookies in a tree. All right, no, that's elves. So anyway, the colors have a lot to do with a lot of things, and magic, whether it be supposedly good magic or bad magic, has a lot to do with color and symbolism, like the casting of bones, the casting of feathers, and all this that goes into occult practices. I'm not going to get deep into that tonight, but all of this is a big symbolism thing with it, okay? And like I said before, symbolism is sort of an invisible language. It's what you're talking. You're putting forth that imagery, and imagery, just like what we were talking about with the doppelgangers and all that. Imagery is a very important aspect of all this. Imagery has a lot to do with it. Okay, image is important and can be powerful in many aspects. Look at the voodoo doll. It has to look like you, but it's got to have some of you, like your hair or your fingernail clipping or a cloth that was up against your body. In order to make a true voodoo doll, if I were going to make a true voodoo doll crystal, okay, I would get some of her hair and I'd stick pins in it, okay, and wish her bad luck. And also, by the way, you don't need to hear too much. You got to put some goofer dust. Really, if you want to do this the right way, you got to put some goofer dust in the doll. But now listen, goofer dust is, you got two kinds of goofer dust. You got good goofer dust and you got bad goofer dust. So if you wanted to make a voodoo doll of somebody, let's say you wanted them to fall in love with you or you wanted to get power over them, you would take the dust off of a good person's grave, fix it into goofer dust. And I'm not going to go into how you do that. Well, you make your goofer dust out of that. But now if you wanted to curse somebody, cause them pain or death, you would get the dust off of an evil person's grave and turn it into the goofer dust that you put in the doll. That's the way that works, okay? But a lot of symbolism goes into this, okay? And the symbolism is very powerful because it means something. Actions speak louder than words, okay? That's the way that goes. Oops, behave, Crystal. Better watch yourself, Crystal. Okay. All right, well, I'll do that. I'll put a picture of you on the face over there, and we'll see how it goes, okay? Where's my pens? I got an extra hand with me tonight. Okay. So anyway, down, boy. Okay. But anyway, that's how that works. Okay, I actually do have a voodoo doll here. I don't use it, by the way. I do not practice voodoo. Okay, I have it as an illustration for people sometimes. But I do have an actual voodoo doll with the pins. It is bad mojo stuff there, folks. Definitely bad juju. You don't want to mess with that. But you are doing things in a very dark, nefarious, black magic sort of way with that. Even if it's supposed to be a love potion type thing, it is still not good because you're actually controlling someone else, and that's never a good thing. It only goes in a bad way when you do that. Okay. All right, moving out along. Let me go back to my list here. Oh yes. Oh yeah, that was the plat eye. Now the boo hag. Okay, let's talk about the boo hag a little bit. I find the boo hag very fascinating because it's sort of vampire-like in many attributes, very much like the Nosferatu. But of course, now the boo hag is a creature that is raw. It has no skin. It has no skin on it, but it can take your skin. It can steal your skin and use it. Okay. And you don't want, they say, be careful, don't let the boo hag ride you. The boo hag is sort of like the night hag. They're really the same thing and just a different slant on a different culture. Okay. But the night hag rides you just like the boo hag rides you. The boo hag will supposedly ride you and will steal your skin and walk around looking like you. Aha, there's a little bit of a double ganger connection there. Okay. Uh, so if you meet John on the street downtown, is it really John? Or is it a boo hag with his skin on him? You don't know what you're running into. And especially that's what the Gullah people thought. Maybe is it the real person or what? But there's two ways you can get the boo hag, okay? If you find the skin that the good boo hag takes off, and usually it steals a dead person's skin and uses that, okay? If you find the skin, you can put salt in it, and the boo hag can never get back in it again. Okay, the boo hag gets stuck; it can't get back in that skin again. So you got a foot up on him there in the saddle. Okay. Another way to keep the boo hag away from you is to put a broom next to your bed, because the boo hag, like the vampire, will stop to count the bristles in the broom, just like they do with a vampire. They throw rice or wheat on the floor because they're supposed to be compulsive counters. Okay, they stop and count every grain of sand, every bean or whatever's on the floor, and they'll be doing that till the sun comes up, and then they gotta leave, and you kind of beat them at their own game. So they're compulsive in that respect, and so is the boo hag. Now the boo hag, I said, very vampire-like, but the boo hag does not kill you by sucking your blood out. It sucks the breath out of your body, and it lives on that breath. It's sort of like a narcotic to it. And that's why it gets on top of you and rides you all night. It's pushing down on you, up and down, almost like cardiopulmonary type thing here, okay? And what it's doing is making you breathe, and it's living off of your breath. Kind of like the old legend about the cat sucking a baby's breath, okay? This is the boo hag, okay? And that's what it supposedly does. And that's why it's so bad. But actually, all of this, folks, I think is one way to explain night paralysis. Now, we have all probably experienced that at one time or another, where you actually wake up and you're paralyzed, you can't move, or you wake up from a very restless night and you feel like you've run a 30-mile trip or something, on foot. You're all worn out and you say, I didn't get any rest last night. You know what? The guy would tell you, the boo hag rode you last night, okay? Or if you woke up and said, I woke up and I couldn't move and there was something in the room on me and all that, you feel like there's something there. That's a night hag thing, a very common syndrome. We think now, though, it's got a lot to do with a psychological thing on this. That's the night hag kind of a thing, though. That's a connection there. Let's see what we got going on here. But I'm finally feeling better again. Okay, that's good, and I'm so glad to hear that. Alan 16, no coincidence I tuned in late, but before tuning in, I was speaking to my family about some of the very things you were discussing. Not all, but some. Well, that's interesting. Maybe you're supposed to be here, definitely. Alan. Okay, maybe that's fine. But now that's the boo hag. It's fascinating. I find it very fascinating because it's so vampiric in that attribute. Very much sort of like the Gullah's answer to the vampire. And the vampires found in almost every culture worldwide. So definitely. And I was thinking today about my favorite all-time novel, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it towards the end of the program. But one of my favorite all-time novels, of course, is Bram Stoker's Dracula. I read it 3 or 4 times a year. I love that book. I love the way it's laid out. I love the journal. I love the story. And I was thinking today about Quincy Morris. Now, remember, Quincy Morris was the cowboy, the American cowboy, and he had the Bowie knife. And he is the only one that died, except for Dracula, in the book, okay? And so, except for, I think, one other character. Anyway, Quincy Morris is a hero. He dies a hero's death, and he stabs Dracula with the Bowie knife. and the other guy takes the knife and cuts Dracula's head off. So Quincy Morris was a hero. As a matter of fact, they named the baby after Quincy Morris um, uh, at the end of the book. Great book, by the way. Anyway, I'm gonna relate back to that again in a little while here. Okay. John Ford says I was lucky enough to read an original edition Dracula in my local library as a child. Oh yeah, I love Dracula. I love Frankenstein. Those are my two all time favorite classics. I'll read them 4 or 5 times a year. Of course, I like some of the other classics. I like H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, and The Invisible Man. I love those, and I like Jules Verne. I love all those classics. I was raised up on them before I discovered comic books. I even read some classic comic books. Okay, there you go. But I was big on comic books, especially what kind of comic books? Horror comic books. Okay, of course I like Superman, Batman, all that too, as well as a kid. I read everything. I was a voracious reader and still am. Whatever I read, I leave labels on cans. I worked in a print shop one time. And they would get on to me because I was so slow because I was reading everything I was printing. That's just my way of going about it. I'm a voracious reader. I read. But that's how you learn these things. Okay. Merely sleep paralysis is when your spirit's getting ready to leave the body and you start to wake up and your spirit's trying to get back in. I've heard that it can be attached to that. Yeah, definitely. That's a very dangerous situation, though. Very dangerous. And I warn people about that, and we're going to be talking about that and how to fight the shadows, about never blanking your mind and some of these other things you don't want to do because you're putting yourself at great spiritual risk and danger. Okay, definitely. Okay, now I'm going to turn to Old Red Eye. This is a fascinating story, and it kind of shows you how dark magic and all that can lead to very bad things. I don't know if you've ever heard the story of Old Red Eye, but it's fascinating, and it's told around the campfires of many gatherings. Okay, but Old Red Eye is actually the story of a Native American medicine man. He was very wicked and evil, and he especially hated white people the most because, well, some soldiers, some of the white soldiers had killed some of his family, and but his hatred wasn't just normal hatred over something like that, but his hatred began to obsess him, began to control him, began to just eat him alive like a disease. And one night while he was praying to his gods, his dark gods of evil and death, during a thunderstorm, lightning struck him, and it hit him in the top of the head and ran down his whole body and left a scar all the way from the crown of his head to the sole of his foot. And he took his right eye out, and the lightning, and they say that after this happened, he became even more evil, and his medicine became much darker and evil after that. And they said that Red Eye, when he would dance and worship his gods and all that, at the height of his evil power, that the hollowed out eye would glow red. And that's when the evil was in him very virulently and strong, when his bad medicine was coming forth. That hole where the eye was no longer would glow red like a red eye. That's why they called him Red Eye, of course. And they said that he could be seen walking in the woods. It would be just one red light, like moving around in the woods. You would be actually seeing the spirit of Red Eye because they trapped him. They hunted him down. The white soldiers finally did and killed him in a ravine. And I was taken one time to actually supposedly see Red Eye's grave where he was supposedly buried. I don't know if it was really true or not, but that was the story about it. Anyway, they say to this day, be very careful in the woods at night because if you see a red light, do not follow it. Do not follow it because this old Red Eye trying to lead you to your death. So be wary of old Red Eye in the forest. Mike Jones, when my father yelled out to get off of him, when I looked, I saw her. She took off, and I chased her till she went up the chimney and was gone. That's very interesting. Demos Mars, I never sleep on my back, too. I do. I sleep on my back. I want to face whatever's coming, okay? Dennis, I can't. Demos, I can't sleep on my back, whatever, left side, and no sleep at all. There you go. My John, I never sleep on my back, and I sleep in front of a fan as the shadows are on the cloud. John Fortman says it's scars that look like hanging left by the electricity moving through your tissues. They fade with time, but are actually beautiful. Oh yeah, I'll tell you, you're talking about those lightning scars, but this was sort of like a boat that really scarred him deeply, like a cut place all the way down his body, supposedly, and popped his eye out. But they said when his magic was at its height, that eye would glow red in the dark. That would have been sight, wouldn't it? Definitely. So if you're out in the woods at night, do not follow any red lights, okay? I would advise you against it. Might be old red eye looking for you. But that's a very interesting story. Definitely. I like that one. But anyway, I was going to leave you with this thing. One of my favorite things from Dracula. And I was thinking about it the other night, and I've said this before, but I like it. And I'm going to repeat it again. So I'm an old man. I get to repeat what I want to, okay? So anyway, I'm talking about the original 1931 Dracula with Bela Lugosi, okay? That's the classic, folks. I'm sorry, but it is a work of art, okay? And there is a lost segment to it. We've got most of the original picture, but there was an ending to it that you don't ever get to see. It got lost. We have the sound part of it, but we don't have the film part of it, okay? But at the very end of Dracula, as it concluded, the last scene, the curtain, they would show a curtain and a curtain would part. And Edward Van Sloan would come out. Now, he's the one who played the real hero of the Dracula story, Dr. Van Helsing. And Edward Sloan would come out, and this is what he would say. Just a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Just a moment before you leave. We don't want Dracula to give you bad dreams tonight. So that when you go home, you may be tempted to look behind the curtains, or you may dread to see a face at the window. Well, pull yourselves together and remember, after all, there are such things. what a great ending. Okay, that's the way to end a horror movie. Okay, definitely. Yes, the use of shadows is great in old. Oh, I love them. I love Frankenstein, Blighter, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, The Mummy. I love all those old ones. The black and white, especially. Like you say, it is art. It's like a work of art come to life. The shadow play and light and shadow, the imagery of it. James Whale was a genius. Okay, the genius director, and the cast are perfect for this. Even the Wolfman, the original Wolfman, that's one of my favorites too, was like a work of art. That's all it is to me today. I consider it like that, to be a true work of art. And then my mother used to say, never be afraid to repeat yourself as long as it wasn't a mistake. Okay, that's a good saying. I'll have to remember that. Definitely. I remember enjoying the Frank Langella Dracula version. Yeah. Well, now the women liked Frank Langella. He was a sexy Dracula. Okay. John Ford. Wow, I never heard that ending. Yes, that was my favorite thing. They should try to recreate that. But when he looks at the camera and says, "Remember, after all, there are such things," and that leaves you right where you need to be. That's great. I don't know who come up with that, but that was genius. Okay. Dennis, can you cover the Flying Canoe and Other Legends of the Frozen One episode, and also read us the classic poem, The Cremation of Sam McGee? That's a great poem. I have read it several times. I'll have to do that one night, definitely for you. Close the door. I'm getting warmer now. Yeah, that's a great poem. I like Service. Service was great. And he did the other one. What's the name of that one? Well, the North Country is a rough country that mothers a bloody brood, and its icy arms hold hidden charms for the greedy, the sinful and lewd, and the strong men rust with the gold and the lust that sears the Northland soul. But the wickedest born from the pole to the horn was the hermit of Shark Tooth Show. That was a great one there, boy. I have to get that one out for you sometime too. That was a great one. Robert W. Service, I think. Um, some of it. I don't have the whole thing memorized. My memories are getting worse as I get older. I used to memorize a lot of this stuff. I have pages and pages of stuff that I have memorized, especially Poe. I can do you a lot of Poe that I have already up here. But some of it I have to read, definitely, especially the Raven. I've got most of the Raven memorized, but I have to be very careful with it. I'd rather read it. You can get off track with it real easy. You have to watch that. It's new to me. Okay, that's some great stuff. That Herman the Chartreuse Shoal is great, and these both of these poems, the Cremation of Sam McGee, and that one, are written in a comedy kind of a thing. It's fun, It's kind of comical. It's great the way he does it. Beyond the Bars, I've always loved this man. Thank you. I think you're talking about me. Okay. So I love Poe and Shakespeare. Oh, definitely. I drank them up. I drank them like liquid. Okay, Shakespeare and Poe and Lovecraft. Oh yeah, they can do it. Actually, the funny thing about it, Lovecraft's inspiration was Poe, and Poe's inspiration was Shakespeare. Okay, so it goes down the line, doesn't it? Okay, it's neat. That's the way that goes. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed tonight's show, and we got on some different topics, but some stuff that needed to be done, definitely. And like I say now, Friday night it's going to be probably be delayed till around 9:30 or 10. But hang in there with me, okay? I promise I'll make it worth your while. And I've got to do that interview on a radio show, but um, uh, I will definitely do that. We're going to have paranormal eyewitness point of view, okay? And I'm going to be telling you about two of my most strange cases. And you're going to want to you're going to want to listen to these because they are very strange. One is it's a very sad case of real demonic murder in that aspect. It was one of the weirdest cases. And by the way, it happened only about a mile and a half from where I'm sitting at tonight. Okay, that's how close this was to home here. Okay, it is one of the strangest cases that I have ever had, and I'm gonna be covering both of these. Definitely, you're gonna want to hear them. And let's see, they're gonna hit that like button. I just everybody, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Please share if you haven't shared. Please, and hit that button and that bell, and that way you'll be notified next time on the next show that comes on. Okay. And I have Jessica on my show Friday, but I'll watch after I'm done. That's fine. Okay, you can always go back and watch again there beyond the box. Hope you and Jessica have a great show. Jessica, I love the way that woman thinks, okay? No, I doubt it. She is fantastic. And the small step can lead to the most significant change, Mike Jones says. Absolutely. There's an old Chinese saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And that's the way that starts, okay? That's the way it has to go. Give me to my 1,000 subscribers. That way I can start hopefully making a little money here to support some of this stuff. Okay. And, I'm not unfortunately an Elon Musk. I don't have a lot of money. So, and it costs money to do these shows. Okay. This is nothing in this life is free, my friends. Definitely not. So if I can get to that 1,000 magic mark, I'd be doing a whole lot better off. And I can offer even much better shows. And I'm trying to put together, don't give up on me, I'm trying to put together the Midnight Road excursions into the unknown. I've got the stories up. You're going to find some very, very interesting stories. Some of those happened to me or other people that I know and things like that. So we're trying to get that off the ground. It's going to be a very small, mini kind of a video series. It's going to be like no more than 10 minutes segments. Okay, but believe me, you won't get bored. Okay. All right. I really appreciate you all being here tonight. Thank you so much for giving me the gift of your time. And I want you to know you're a part of this podcast. You're a part of the family. Okay. And I'm afraid you're stuck with us. Okay. So there you go. And I appreciate your being here. And as always, your support means a whole lot to me. Okay. And I might even have each of your names down in my field book here. Okay, you better watch out. So anyway, seriously, I do appreciate your support, your continued support, and let's get out there and share the program out. Okay, and enjoy ourselves. That's what life's about: the pursuit of happiness. Okay, and I appreciate it, and I hope you have. This is Hump Day. I hope you have the rest of the week kind of clear sailing in the Friday here. All right. And I really appreciate all of you. And I raise the parting glass, my friends, until once more we meet again. All right. And remember, veritas et equitas, that's truth and justice. Carpe noctem, seize the night and embrace the mystery. Hunting the shadows.